Today I'm going to be talking about manufacturing truth. I think it's not a secret that our state of media is in terrible shape. The trust level is at an all-time low, probably. I constantly am sitting on a bench and I see people walking by and talking about how they don't trust anything, and they do tend to use terms like fake news, and it's not just the president of the U.S. who uses it. So, but there's a lot of issues, but I'm going to focus on a few and sort of about some of the things that, some of the technologies that are being used and how they manipulate us and our sort of sense of reality and what we believe to be true. So, I was sometimes when I open Google, a bunch of news items pop up and there are articles, and I noticed that I've been kind of interested in nootropics, and I've been interested in traveling to Japan and a lot of really random subjects, and I found that suddenly the articles that I was finding were like so coincidentally matching what I was already reading about, and I thought, wow, I must be so current. I didn't know it was that cool. But it turns out it wasn't the truth. So I eventually caught on that these news headlines were basically being shaped by my browsing history, were being shaped by maybe even targeting me in some cases. So so they get me basically through my existing interests and giving me more of my interests. And why is it so bad, right? Like, isn't more of a good thing more of a good thing? The problem is, yes, but there's a lot of problems with it, because what it does is, instead of me, searching out and kind of stumbling across random news items and articles and things that I never even thought about before, suddenly I'm just getting more of the same things I've already stumbled on. So my worldview is extremely limited. It also creates this perception that here I am, these things that I've found myself randomly interested in are all that there is, and that's what everybody's interested in. And I have no idea what everyone else is talking about. And it creates this misbalanced view of what reality actually is. And then, there is a danger to it, because right now, most of those news are just being targeted to me because of my search history. But what about, when somebody wants to actually manipulate your view? So, for example, if we have somebody who wants to take away guns, whether you agree with it or not, but if you were constantly seeing articles that were all about gun violence, it's going to, affect how you're going to think about guns. Or if you were constantly seeing articles about crime and the crime rate going up, then maybe a political candidate who is really tough on crime is going to be somebody you're going to think about electing. And so, and you can really target people in that way and create these, narratives that aren't necessarily true, but you have no way of knowing what is true, because your worldview is shaped by the news. Also, it can be used in a very kind of targeted way. So, for example, if you have a trial, if you know who the jurors are, you can even, target them more specifically and feed them information that's all about, going to influence their perception of a trial that they're currently involved in. And they won't even know. And it could be done through social media. So right now, most of the news that we're getting that way are curated by an algorithm. But there's nothing, because the mechanism is there, there's absolutely nothing there to stop it from being manipulated by some entity, whether it's a political entity, whether it's a government entity, or a corporation. And that is dangerous. So another thing that I want to talk about is the sort of the deepfake situation. And again, it talks to our reality. So I stumbled across this ad with Audrey Hepburn, and I'm going to let you watch it. Okay, so I watched this ad and I was like, that's really weird that Audrey Hepburn would do an ad for Dove chocolates. I mean, A, it's not that good of a chocolate, sorry. But B, I don't even know if it even existed when she was alive. And 3, something did feel a little bit off, but I decided to research it and realized that, I obviously lost a headline at some point. But basically it was a fake ad, and this is not actually Audrey Hepburn, but, a technological manifestation of her. And the thing is, Audrey Hepburn probably never even consented to this. And this is actually quite a significant issue. There's a lot of people who are being emulated in all sorts of platforms, and some R-rated platforms, and often against their consent. And so deepfakes are sort of can be a problem. And then, like, what do all these people have in common? So, Jordan Peterson, Mark Zuckerberg, Donald Trump, Obama, and Joe Rogan. Well, they have all been deepfaked, basically. So deepfake is basically, so I'll show you a
We're entering
video.
an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or, how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. It's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fucked up dystopia. Thank you. Stay woke, bitches.
So, of course, I guess Obama didn't really say that, but as technology gets better, it's going to become even less obvious whether he did or not. And how do you know? So deepfake is basically, I'm sure most people probably do know, but it's a machine learning technology that allows you to use AI to learn how a face looks and works, and creates basically a forgery of a human being, essentially. A lot of the use for it, and I think what sort of how it was developed, was more for games and entertainment. Wasn't necessarily intended to be used maliciously, but of course, once you have something you can use maliciously, you tend to do it. And honestly, if I could just make one right now, I totally would. So it raises the question of, like, what is it that we can trust in the media? It used to be like, a photo is worth 1,000 words and a video is worth, I don't know, 1 billion. So if we saw somebody say something, oh, we caught you, gotcha. This person is a horrible human being. He said this thing. But now, do we really know if he actually said it or she said it? And it becomes very difficult to tell. And what about, when it comes to court? What do you use as evidence in courts? What if, you're showing a video of somebody and claim that they said something, and that person never did? How do you prove you didn't say it? How do you disprove when there is a video? And that's something that I think is going to be kind of a big part of the conversation. And there might be technologies developed to battle that, but it is an issue. So, I thought, hey, I can tell the difference, but let's play. Can you tell the difference? So there is some videos here of, there's a website that was created called Fake Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan, I don't know how familiar everyone is with him, but sometimes he says things that are a little bit suspect. And throw in a little DMT and you're going to think it's Joe Rogan. But so we'll click, maybe I'll get you to, so let's click one and we'll see, you're going to listen to Joe Rogan or not Joe Rogan say something, and we're going to
Some of you just need to improve the quality of your existence on Earth. You got to do the right things.
Okay, hands up if you think this is real Joe Rogan. Okay? And hands up if it's fake, if you think it's fake. Okay. Well, let's click. No, this is fake. And actually, the majority of you thought he was real. So let's try one more.
Healthy, local ingredients, farm fresh ingredients.
Okay, who thinks it's real? Okay, quite a few. And who thinks it's fake? Okay. All right, it's real. But it just shows you how difficult it is to tell the difference. And it's as technology improves, it's going to just be harder and harder. It's not going to be easier. And, that Obama, watching him, it's a little not perfect. There is a little mechanical element to it, but it's definitely getting way better. So is there an antidote to sort of this fake reality that we're getting? Or is it too late? I know this is all a very, dystopian view, but in some ways it is too late, because what happened is that as technology grew and these technologies were developing, there wasn't necessarily regulation introduced, because we couldn't necessarily predict all the impact that it was going to have. And so there is a lot that's sort of gotten away from us. And trust in media is very, very low. And we're definitely feeling like, and all these technologies are definitely causing some issues, and they're only going to cause more as we progress and as they get better and people learn how to use them to manipulate even better. So can we do something? Or is it too late? I am a little bit more optimistic than the title of this talk. But I think there are some things that we can do. So we can insist on transparency, and we could introduce some regulations to make sure that it's sort of regulated. I think one of the issues that I was having a problem with when I was reading those news headlines, the reason I didn't realize those were curated to me is like there was no disclaimer. So something as simple as it saying, these are special articles that we selected for you based on your search history. That would have made a huge difference, because I would have known that's what I'm getting. But often these things are done so quietly, invisibly, that you don't know. And I think it's important for us to understand. We also need to understand, be able to expose manipulation and deceptive techniques. A lot of people, this is a pretty savvy room, so a lot of people might have already known a little bit about deepfakes, but there's a lot of people out there who have no idea it even exists. And especially to the level that it has gotten, how good it has gotten. Same thing happened to me with that Audrey Hepburn ad. I didn't realize it wasn't a real ad. I just something felt a little bit off, so I looked into it. But, there's no disclosure. So I think we need to be able to shine some light on that. And we need to understand that truth might be dictated by an algorithm, or at worst, an algorithm is at least maybe unbiased to some extent, although there is a lot of biases built into the tools. But at worst, you could be manipulated by specific forces. And, we might live in a democracy now. Not all countries are a democracy. And so I think the biggest antidote is really to stay skeptical and try to figure out what is real and what it isn't. And it's not that easy. It's an information war out there. Thank you so much.